Good morning and welcome to the County Seat. I'm the producer Derek Dowsett with a quick update on today's show. Since our original taping, there have been a couple changes. Because of the assertive actions of rural county commissioners from around the state, grazing amendment plans on 3 forests here in Utah have been suspended, and there is talks that they may be eliminated completely. Now please stay tuned, because while this issue may be solved, these issues are still relevant as far as the impacts that they bring to local county governments. So stay tuned, the County Seat is next.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. We're bringing you our show today from the governor's boardroom at the Utah State Capitol. Our topic today is going to be grazing, particularly grazing on the forests. Currently, 3 of Utah's forests are working in conjunction to come up with one uniform grazing plan for the ranchers on all 3 forests. They're the Manti-La Sal, the Dixie, and Fishlake. And that will be the focus of our discussion. This potentially has great impacts on the ranchers. Now, going back to a point of history, the original mission of the U.S. Forest Service was to provide treasury money, to put money into the United States coffers through economic activities on the forests. And they were to manage for multiple use and sustained yield, which means they were supposed to take care of the treasure, but they were supposed to use it to promulgate revenues for the federal government. That mission seems to have changed, and that will be part of our analysis. But let's start by looking at what issues the Forest Service thinks they need to address in the grazing plan and what impacts it might have. And we'll follow it up with a discussion from there.
In 1897, the Forest Service Organic Administration Act provided the main statutory basis for the management of forest reserves in the United States. This act led to the eventual organization of the Forest Service in 1905. Today, their mission is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forests and grasslands in an attempt to meet the needs of present and future generations. Recently, more and more forest users are regarding that sentiment as more romantic than real, with management decisions that are seemingly more about preserving resources rather than harvesting them. Today, a meeting of county officials is focused on a proposal by the Forest Service to amend grazing on 3 Utah forests, a plan that representatives feel intentionally singles out livestock grazers, further restricting their access to allotments. The Dixie, Fishlake, and Manti-La Sal National Forests are assessing the need to update their management plans regarding grazing.
We think our plans are out of date. We think some of the information we're smarter now than we were in 1986. We didn't include some direction we should have, in hindsight now. We included some direction in our forest plans that just ain't working for us, quite frankly, right now. It's tying our hands and not getting results on the ground we're looking for.
County commissioners argued that planning efforts shouldn't focus on grazing only, and that there are a number of factors that the plans need to consider when planning for the forest's health. Counties point out that many of the changes that need to happen on the ground could happen at the allotment level rather than a full-out planning amendment process on 3 forests. The biggest concern among counties is restrictions impacting rural economies and lifestyles. Some of these livestock grazers are 5th and 6th generation Utahns that have a direct connection and history with the land.
In Panguitch, we've got a rancher by the name of Paul Hatch. This guy has about a 300 head cow-calf operation. It's all he has in the world, okay? He runs on the forest. He goes out, he moves the cows around, he takes care of the land. He cares 100 times more about that land than any tree hugger environmentalist on the face of this planet, I'll guarantee it. You know, that's the type of people right there that are being abused, and it needs to stop.
Allen points out that he has to consider a much bigger picture when asked whether ranchers should be concerned.
It's public land for the whole nation, and everybody has an interest in it. And so that's uncomfortable, because you just mentioned they could be 5th or 6th generation. I got it. They have rightfully, a lot of interest in what happens here, and I understand that. And it's also public land for the rest of the nation as well. And there is a conflict I don't know how to resolve, except let's get together and talk about what's our future? What do we want to get to? What's the future goal for us?
With so many stakeholders to consider in the process, it is a difficult task to create new plans. Commissioners from around the state made it clear that whatever happens, there does need to be close communication between the Forest Service and the counties, so that balance between use and preservation doesn't swing too far in any one direction. For the county seat, I'm Derek Dowsett.
Thanks for that report. We will continue our conversation about the Three Forest Grazing Plan when we come back on the county seat.
Remember those good old days? The places you went with your family when you were young? Reinvest in those old memories by making new ones. Beaver County is the perfect place to start that new tradition. Enjoy your favorite pastimes with family and friends. Connect with the history and culture of Utah in a place that's looking to the future. Modern conveniences minus the hustle and bustle of other locales. Beaver County, your adventure starts here.
Color, it's something that can be seen. But have you ever wanted to reach out and touch it? Experience it. In San Juan County, Utah, color comes to life like nowhere else on earth. Color can be more than an abstract. Color can be your gateway to a new world. Visit San Juan County and explore the past, present, and future in a way that you've only dreamed of. San Juan County. Color your experience.
I lived in Phoenix and then down in Orange County in California, and I met a small town girl and she brought me home. Just the smaller community that makes you feel like when you go somewhere you know everybody. You know, the sporting programs, the dance events, all these kinds of things, you run into people you know and that care about you and your family. And that makes it just a wonderful place to have little ones like this.
Isn't it time you found the balance you've been looking for? Uinta County, Utah.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is grazing. Three forests are currently going through a grazing revision all at the same time, and it apparently is being coordinated all at the same time. Joining us for our discussion, Garfield County Commissioner Leland Pollock, and we have Representative Mike Noel, who represents most of southern Utah from the Utah State Legislature. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me for this conversation. Why are we here? How did we get to this point? What happened?
Well, I'll take that one. That's simple for me. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
When you cast your ballot, do you cast your ballot for an individual or do you cast your ballot for a special interest group? You cast your ballot for an individual.
That's true.
Okay, according to the Constitution, your local elected officials are the ones that represent the people. Mm-hmm. The problem we've had with this process is for the last 3 years, the Fishlake supervisor has been working with special interest groups, not the local elected officials. He's been in my county. How do I know this? I've had a Forest Service employee tell me this. He's been in my county on the ground with special interest groups, not with county commissioners, not with mayors, not with elected officials, not with ranchers, working out all of these reasons why they shouldn't graze, okay? And let me go one further than that. 3 years ago, I knew they were going to do a three forest EIS. They denied it. Today, on the ground in 2015, they've budgeted money to do a three forest EIS. So what does this mean? What does this mean for the rancher like Todd Phillips down in Escalante, Utah, that has, I think, a 300 head cow-calf operation? That's what he depends on. That's his living. So he depends on people like Mike Noel and Leland Pollock to stick up for him. Okay, that's why we go through an electoral process. The biggest problem we have right now in the Forest Service is their willingness to work with special interest groups. They should be working with the state of Utah, the governor's office. They should be working with the local elected officials. They shouldn't be working with the Grand Canyon Trust. All of these special interest groups want the cattle gone, period.
You got anything to add to that, Mark?
I think it's actually even more than that too, and I've been through this scenario before when you have a lame duck president like President Obama, and you have an election coming up in 2 years, and the Democratic Party now is not in the greatest of shape. They just lost the House and the Senate. It's a good chance we could have a Republican president. What happens is many of the chips that are out there that they have to pay back. And some of those chips come out of southern Utah. They come out of states that are pretty much red states, Republican states. And so they pay off groups like the Grand Canyon Trust, the Nature Conservancy, the groups like Friends of the Earth, and even more radical groups. They pay them off through going to the agencies, through the executive branch, and saying, you know, we've got these groups that like to cut grazing. And they've done this over the years. They have significantly cut grazing on the national forest. They've cut them on the BLM, and it hasn't improved the range. It's really not done anything except satisfy these individuals. So it's not just the fact that they're working with groups. That's a mechanism to get this thing done. But the fact that the administration at the very top level is saying we need to cut more AUMs.
When I interviewed the Fishlake supervisor in preparation for this show, I talked to him specifically about why this isn't a broader plan. Why are we just only dissecting grazing? Because a presentation that USU made showed that the conifer growth and the PJ growth in these different areas has significantly advanced, and it's taken away what was traditionally grassland and sagebrush land and converted it because it hasn't been challenged. Obviously, you know, it wasn't managed as timber is usually managed, because we haven't been managing timber, and it's encroached. And so the question was, well, why not look at that? His response was, well, do we have the moral authority to be able to change what the forests look like? That was basically his answer.
I'll take that one.
Okay.
I have a question for him. Why is he picking on the ranchers? He's looking at 1% of the forest, okay? 99% of the forest needs attention. You've got the risk of catastrophic fire. You have mismanagement, misuse. You've got bark beetle kill. You have all kinds of issues that they need to look at. And here they are looking at not the grasslands, really. They're looking at the riparian. That's 1% of the forest. So why is it that they have zeroed in on this 1% of the forest issue when they have the risk of catastrophic fire? They could wipe out that entire forest. And then what do you have? You have nothing. So my question to him is, why are you picking on the ranchers? You know, that's who, that is the core of this issue for me today, and I'm a little bit upset about this. You can tell.
Yeah,
the reason is
you're not at your calmness.
Yeah, these guys are getting picked on. If you're a rancher out on the range, you're getting bullied by the Forest Service, and I'm tired of it. They need to stop. They need to stop this process. They need to come to the table with the elected officials, and they need to do this right. Otherwise, we're going to go forward with all the help we can get congressionally, legislatively, and so be it, through the Attorney General's office.
Well, let's turn our attention a little bit and let's talk about the thing you brought up, because they're just looking at grazing. Why do you think that they haven't opened up the entire resource management plan for review? Because obviously there are a lot of things that impact the land other than just the grazing, and they're not addressing the general health of the forest. And Rowley said specifically, I asked him, should we be cutting back trees? Should we be reversing that advancement? And he said, well, is that what we want our forest to look like? It's everybody's forest. Do I even have the right to do that? So I'd like to throw that I'd like to throw that out for discussion.
Well, the Forest Service was put in the Department of Agriculture, and it's not the Interior Department, it's Agriculture. And so one of the reasons for that was because we had forest programs. That's where timber is located, and also that's where you had a lot of grazing and allotments out there. But the Department of Agriculture has really been stymied the way their regulations are written, that they allow non-governmental organizations, special interest groups, to be able to stop any type of a project. So I think this is one where they think they've got a small group of individuals, the ranchers, the permittees. They can take those permittees and they can take them on as far as that, and not take on the bigger issues, which is, why don't we have forests that are in good, healthy conditions? Why are they in a decadent position? Why are we getting more conifers out there instead of deciduous forest?
Well, isn't it actually true that if you removed grazing, the forest would deteriorate further?
I believe that. I strongly believe that. And one of the key things for us, even on this Wasatch Front, but that's where our watershed comes from. So the more deciduous vegetation we have, the better we get infiltration, the better and cleaner our water is, as opposed to conifers. And if you burn it all down, you've seen what's happened after these fires. You get mudslides right down here in the middle of the bottoms of the valleys down here. The mud comes down and destroys people's homes, destroys property. So the Forest Service is not doing a very good job. That's why we want to transfer these lands to the state of Utah.
Great. This is a good place to take a break. Stay with us. We'll come back with more of our conversation right after this commercial break on the county seat.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
You go through the day-to-day repeating what you did yesterday. Don't you wish you could access that piece of your life that's missing? Find the beauty, serenity, family fun, or anything else that's missing from your life in the Cedar City Bryan Head area. Gain access to your adventure, whether it's camping, hiking, the arts, festivals, or just a getaway. Visit cedarcityayl.com for details on all the adventures that you can access in scenic southern Utah.
Imagine a unique, breathtaking cascade misting into the deep pool below. A world-renowned national scenic byway that snakes through some of the greatest views in the world. A canyon painted red by the hands of time. A land that brings the Wild West back to life. And it's all in one amazing place. Here's some advice when visiting Bryce Canyon Country. Take your time.
There is a place where young and old make connections. Where kids feel like grown-ups. And grown-ups feel like kids. There is a place where beauty arises in contrast. Where wonder is universal. And laughter second nature. There is a place where friends find a future. Families find each other. And feelings find their home. There is a place.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are having a discussion today about a three-forest plan that would involve Fishlake, the Dixie, and the Manti-La Sal, and how they're going to handle grazing, not the entire management plan for the forest. If you only take out the cattle in the riparian areas, and of course you take riparian areas away, the cattle go away. Are we only treating a symptom and not the cause of the degradation of the forest?
Well, here's what people don't realize. And thanks to Representative Noel, we can do these things. He gets us state money. We have consultants. We study the range. And not science fiction like you see these special interest groups use. And how do I know that? Because the Forest Service should follow their own regulation, which is the Data Quality Act. The data that they get has to be quality. It has to be approved. Well, we use data that is quality driven by experts. Some of them used to work for the government, and they are notorious for being accurate and spot on. So here is my answer to that. Absolutely, they need to go in. They need to take the correct data, and if they can't get it, we've got it for them. Okay, they need to do treatment, veg treatments. They need to thin the trees. They need to reduce the risk of catastrophic fire. They need to make the forest healthy. Back in the 70s, when I was a kid, when they had active forest management, back when we had sawmills, before we had catastrophic fires and had this insanity on public land, we had beautiful forests. Why? Because we had active forest management. So let's not go out and get with these special interest groups and hide behind closed doors and use their bogus data. Let's use our data. If they don't have the right data, we have it. Yeah. And let's make these forests healthy.
Mike, is there a legal avenue where you can challenge their data versus your data?
Absolutely, and that's why we've hired these individuals, as the commissioner said. They've worked on the range. In almost every case, we found that these ranges were either in a static situation or they were improving. Very, very few of them are in a decadent situation. Well, what's happened then is the environmental organizations have gone and said, let's change the standards. Let's go ahead and make the standards more stringent. Let's change the stubble height where we make the cattle move. The whole process here is a driven process to an end. You have an end result that you want, which is less cattle on the range, which is less ranchers out there on the grazing properties, and that's what's driven by the data and the way they collect the data. And we think we need to stay on top of that. Now, we do have a plan, and we have individuals. Now we have Congress in control. We got individuals like Chris Stewart and Rob Bishop and others that want to help on this, so we can stop some of these things through the budget process, and we are working on that. We have lots of tools now that we didn't have. But we've got to, people have to recognize this. I had a couple of ranchers that said, well, the Forest Service came to us and they wanted to help us out. And they said, if you'll take a certain amount of cut, then we'll come in and we'll help you with some new reservoirs, with some fences, with some pipelines. Well, when it all boiled down after a year, they're ending up with a 40% cut, no work on reservoirs, and no fences. So I would say, I would not at this point in time go in with the Forest Service, agree to anything if you're a grazing permittee. Back off, let your county commissioners, let others in the state here protect those resources to make sure that we do have grazing on into the future, because if you give them away now, you're never going to get them back. A suspended AUM is an AUM that they've removed from the grazing, and they say, well, at some point in time we'll get it back. Very rarely, if not ever, do those ever come back.
What we need to do is we need to look at what works, not what is not working. Now, what works is, as I said, active forest management, and there are ways to do that. They have a vehicle right now with the UPCD program. Representative Noel makes sure that that's funded through the state of Utah. That's a veg treatment program that's treated over 1 million acres in the state of Utah. Okay?
And has it been successful?
It's been absolutely successful. Yeah. Why? Because the DNR runs it, but they run it right. The Division of Natural Resources, and they run it right, okay?
So this gets into the whole issue of who should manage the public lands in Utah, and it pushes right into, and we thought we had protections in these management bills in the Forest Service Organic Act and BLM, but we don't. Utah needs to take control of these lands and manage them for the people of Utah.
All right, it's a great place for us to stop. Let's take a break. We'll come back with this conversation in just a minute right here on the county seat.
We all assume that the food we eat is safe, but how do you know? Well, it starts on the farm and continues every step of the way to your local grocery store. So when you bring home food, you do so with the peace of mind that it's safe, fresh, and nutritious, thanks to the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food, the guardians of Utah's food supply and sustainable agriculture. Learn more by visiting ag.utah.gov.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah County? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
ATV? Check. Four-wheel driving? Check. Bouldering? Check. Mountain biking? Check. Hiking? Check. River rafting? Check. Adventure is about more than just crossing activities off of a list, but hey, if you can find a place that gives you everything you're looking for, all the better. In Emery County, you'll find the San Rafael swell, trails, lakes, and the small-town hospitality you're looking for. San Rafael Country, in the heart of Utah. Visit us and check something off your list.
Welcome back to the county seat. We have been discussing the three-forest plan today with Fishlake, Manti-La Sal, and the Dixie. Okay, so here's the question. If you're just taking out grazing and not looking at the whole thing, is the state actually interested in getting the Forest Service to open up the whole plan? Should that be the course of action?
Well, absolutely. What we need to get back to is multiple use. Quit picking on the ranchers. You know, the ranchers are good people. These people have been conducting this activity for 150 years. Leave them alone, okay? Let's manage the forest for everybody. And by the way, the elk are doing as much damage to these riparian areas as the cattle. But let's get back to Representative Noel mentioned it at the break. Multiple use of the land, hunting, fishing, access, ATV. Teddy Roosevelt reserved these lands in 1905 for that, multiple use. Let's get away from locking this land up, because remember, if you lock it up, no matter what, somebody's going to get it. And if it means transferring it back to the state of Utah, I'm all for it right now. And the reason I am is because in the great state of Utah, we would make sure it remains public land, and we would make sure that it remains multiple use land.
Mike?
I have a bill, it's called the Utah Public Lands Management Act, and that's going to come out and tell you how we will manage these lands, and he's right. We're going to manage this for multiple use and sustained yield. And if we do that, then we'll have everybody on board with us, except maybe the most extreme people, but we'll have the ranchers, we'll have the timber people, we'll have the off-road vehicle, we'll have the people that want to have recreational areas, we'll have the watershed people that want to protect watershed. If we can do that and manage this land from a state standpoint, where we get our own stakeholders involved with this, all these different groups, we'll do a much better job. It'll be driven from people in this state. It won't be a political process. It'll be a process just like we do everything here in Utah. Utah is the best managed state in the United States. If we compare Utah and our management to what's happening in Washington, D.C., it's not even a close call. They're doing it wrong. We're doing it right. We need to allow Utah to take control of these lands. We need to keep the ranchers and the graziers in there, what their investment is, and make it happen. And we need to protect these lands, but through Utah management, not federal management.
Is it disingenuous to give a weighted balance to people that don't live here, that we're protecting all of the U.S. forests versus the people that live here?
Well, let me tell you about the U.S. forests. They're in horrible condition. So the disingenuous thing about the forest is they're burning up. We're losing our forests. Let's get in there, let's cut the trees, let's open the sawmills back up. Let's let the people use the land and do it right. Otherwise, you're going to have catastrophic fires, and you talk about a mess. You talk about a safety issue, a resource issue, and a virtual wasteland. How many of these riparian areas are going to be wiped out in a catastrophic fire? That's the question also I have for the Fishlake Forest Supervisor. When we have a catastrophic fire, and it's when right now in this drought,
yeah,
it's going to wipe the forests out. Animals, riparian, trees, everything. So let's get on top of it and fix the whole situation.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We're out of time in the county seat. Join us next week. In the meantime, we invite you to look us up online, go to our website, our Facebook page, and I think we'll take another few minutes and record one more session that you can share with us online. We'll see you next week on the county seat. If you like this video, then we invite you to subscribe to our channel, The County Seat. You can do that here. And we invite you to share with your friends. We also invite you to get all the latest up-to-date information by following us on our social media channels. And if all else fails, make sure that you watch The County Seat Sunday morning at 8:30 right here on ABC4